This is Glasgow Rangers Nation. I'm Owen James, and this is all your latest Rangers transfer news and views and updates, guys. Look, we was going to do this as a live, but work got in the way, so we're doing this as a video now. Hope that's okay with you guys. We're going to do this video today as this what's called a premiere. So you're watching it, you can talk, and you can talk to each other on the live chat. I'm not actually doing this live, so I can't bring your comments up. Do apologise about that. So that's the way it works. Okay, guys. Right. So we're going to look obviously at what's going to go on this week as regards Rangers. It is going to be hopefully a very busy week for the club. I've read numerous articles this morning, listened to numerous other bits and pieces around on the web at this moment in time. And the common consensus seems to be that there will be a minimum of 3 outgoings and a minimum of 3 to 4 incomings, which obviously goes closely to reflecting what Philippe Clement said in his post-match presser on Saturday, when he talked a little bit here about the fact that on transfers, I expect a busy week, but more incoming than outgoing. There will be outgoings, but players who are not in the squad today. So it looks like there will be more incomings. Now, one of the sort of reports that has been doing the rounds in recent times has been that Rangers have a situation where they've actually got money to spend on players. However, there had to be a huge, substantial cutting of an overinflated wage bill. As we know, the wage bill at the club was astronomical, with a number of players on very high contracts with very high weekly settlements and very high weekly pays. Obviously, you know, Connor Goldson, Sam Lammers, players who've now departed the club. Obviously, Ben Davis, another one where we've saved, I think it's 1.4 million. As I said on the video this morning, the reports that I'm hearing coming out of Birmingham is that the salary is being wholly picked up by their billionaire owner, Tom Wagner, who is a very, very wealthy guy, obviously backed up by that individual, Tom Brady, who, you know, I cannot stand. Anyway, so look, that's where we're up to at this moment in time. So it does look like there will be more departures. Now, Ben Davis obviously departed the club yesterday. It's, you know, currently 10:54 when I'm recording this video. There's still no news of any further departures or arrivals from the club. Now, I think, you know, there is a number of discussions around who will depart and who will be, you know, who will be the players on the way out of the club. So we'll talk about that first. We'll talk about the Haji Cantwell problem. We'll also talk a little bit as well about, you know, the prospective arrivals, looking at the names that have been linked. As well, we've got a little bit more news over the KK or Kai or whatever he's called, or Kai or whatever he's called, the Brazilian fella. You know, there's been a bit more news about him. So where are we up to with all this? Well, look, I think, you know, in terms of departures from the club, I think, you know, obviously the top 2 on the list to go out are Cantwell and, of course, Haji. Now, Cantwell is a tricky one at this moment in time. I think, you know, Todd Cantwell has perhaps damaged brand Cantwell a little bit by his actions over the last sort of few months. I think the social media activity, you know, has damaged him to some degree. I think clubs will look at that and perhaps not be wanting to take that risk on him. I mean, personal opinion is, you know what, if you perform, and I know Todd Cantwell wasn't consistently, and I'm not saying that he was. But, you know, if you're performing on the field, I couldn't give a monkey's what you do on social media. I genuinely couldn't, you know, I really couldn't care less what you write on social media, what you do on TikTok, what you do on X, or what you do on Instagram. You can post whatever crap you want. You can dance around with your cock out if you really want to. I just genuinely don't care, as long as you're playing on the field. You know, modern footballers are very, very different to footballers we've all grown up with. And I think, you know, had social media and TikTok and Instagram been around in the days of, you know, Gaza and Mo Johnston and, you know, some of those players growing, you know, that we've grown up with, you know, I think, you know, you could have seen some pretty risque stuff from Gaza on social media had it been, you know, around when he was playing. But obviously, you know, it wasn't to that degree. Yeah, there are still those hilarious stories about Gaza, but obviously I think they would have had more press and perhaps more video coverage had social media been in existence. So, you know, look, I don't really give a shit what he does on social media. I couldn't care less. If Todd Cantwell wants to write, I'm a knob, everyone's a knob on social media, I genuinely couldn't give a monkey's as long as he's playing well on the field. But it does look like, obviously, he will be got rid of. I think there is the issue as well around him, obviously not wanting to play for the B team, obviously agreeing to do with the training side of it. But from what Clement was saying the other day, he doesn't want to play B team football, which is regrettable. Is regrettable, especially if you contrast that with the attitude of Janis Haji, who's come back from the Euros, back from his holidays, and is, obviously just buckling down, playing and trying his best. Obviously, either get a move or persuade Philippe Clement that he's worth taking a risk on. But as for the Cantwell situation, I think, the clubs may be biding their time. I mean, the only interest I've read in Cantwell has been Trabzon. Although after the performances of John Lundstrom out in Turkey and the reaction of the fans to said performances, with them calling on him to be sacked, I think there may be a reticence to buy any more Rangers players. But, Trabzon apparently, the report I read earlier was that they were waiting to near the very end of the window to come in with a bid. And I think there's a lot of clubs, perhaps maybe even championship clubs, who are looking at Cantwell as a possible player for them, but are seeing it in the situation that Rangers are desperate to sell. They know the situation that's ongoing with Cantwell. The longer that it's left, the more desperate Rangers will become to get rid of Todd Cantwell. I mean, realistically, we can't have him sat round on £25,000 a week come the end of the window. If the window closes on the 30th of August and it's 11:30 or 11:31 or 11, well, I can't remember. It's 11 o'clock or 11:30 in Scotland. I know one of them's England, one of them's Scotland. But, let's take it to the 31st. Let's say it's the 31st of August. We wake up on the 31st of August and Todd Cantwell is still a Rangers player. We're left with a very difficult situation. We're left with a player that doesn't want to play unless it's first team football. We're left with a player that the manager, and I think the relationship between him and the manager has inexorably broken down. I think there is a real issue there, despite what Philippe Clement says, between Cantwell and Clement. I genuinely think the two of them cannot get on. Now, I think there is a breaking down of that relationship to such a point where it can't be repaired. So we're going to have a situation where until January, we have a player sat in the stands on £25,000 a week, doing absolutely nothing for it. People have said, but let's sack Cantwell. We can't. I think, as a club, we are not as fortunate in terms of finances, in terms of money to be able to pay players off. The situation would be that if we cancelled Cantwell's contract, we'd have to pay his contract up. Now, given the fact that obviously would be a substantial amount of cash, I can't see Rangers wanting to waste that much money on paying a player off. Not if they can at some point try and redeem some money for him. So, look, I think there will be something done, even if it's just sending him out on loan to get him off the wage bill. That also may be a possibility near the end of the window. So on the Janis Haji front, now, according to a lot of reports in Europe this weekend, Rapid Bucharest are stepping up their interest in Haji. However, Haji's camp don't seem very, very up for the whole idea of going back to his native Romania. His father as well spoke about that as well and said he didn't feel it was time for Janis to return home. I think obviously there's some elements of that with the fact the Romanian league is not particularly strong. It's not a major league in Europe. I think the Haji camp and his father as well want him to go and play in Spain or Italy or Germany or France or England or play for Rangers. To have be playing for a major team or in a major league in Europe. I don't think there is a desire amongst Haji's camp to actually go back to Romania. So I think no matter what Rapid Bucharest come in with, no matter what the bid is by Bucharest, I cannot see that deal going through. Also, you ally that to the fact that Rapid's enemies are Stoya. Haji's seniors club is Stoya. Haji family are very close to Stoya Bucharest. I cannot see Janis Haji going to play for their arch rivals. That is just not possible. So I don't think there's any truth in that rumour whatsoever. Although if there is truth that Rapid Bucharest are interested, I do think that Janis and his camp will make sure that move does not go ahead, in the same way that Cyril Dessers turned down allegedly that move to Atlanta United in the MLS. So look, I don't think that can go ahead. I think there is a desire still within the Haji camp to kind of try and push through a move to Italy or a move to Spain. I think those two leagues would very much suit Janis Haji. I've got to say, on the whole Janis Haji narrative, a lot of people say that, he's not part of Clement's plans because he's too slow to play in Clement's formations. He's not quick enough. I do think that's a very false narrative for me. I mean, Tom Lawrence is hardly a whippet, is he? I mean, the guy's hardly Usain Bolt. Tom Lawrence, I think in the words of David Edgar, Tom Lawrence is great as long as he hasn't got to do a lot of running. So I think to say that Haji can't play for Rangers because he's too slow is a ridiculous argument and simply not true. Because, it clearly doesn't matter, because I don't think any of our forward our 10, any our 9s, I don't think any of them are particularly lightning fast. I mean, Cyril Dessers is not lightning fast. Yes, Cheney is quick. Yes, Matondo is quick, but Danilo is certainly not quick. I haven't seen Hamza Igman enough to pass a verdict on him. Lowry's not particularly quick. Camwell's not particularly quick. So none of those players are particularly quick. So I don't think that is a valid argument. I think the issue, whether you believe it or not, is around that £6,000. I don't think Rangers want to pay that. Is there a solution to that? Possibly. And again, if we are sat here on the 31st of August and Janis Haji is still a Rangers player, then we've really got to kind of come up with a solution to that, haven't we? Because we can't have a situation where Janis is sat in the stands on £21,000, £22,000 a week doing nothing. I think, of all the players that have kind of, wanted to leave this summer, Janis is the one that, for me, has impressed more. He's had a very professional attitude. He's come back from the Euros. At the Euros, he was very good. He did very well at the Euros for Romania. So the guy is obviously a very talented footballer. He did well against some very difficult teams out there. So, he's come back with the right attitude. He's come back with the right spirit. He's played any game that he's been asked to play. He's trained still. He's working with the B team, but he's playing with the B team. He's not refusing. He's showing a very positive attitude. So, look, I think, whether that £6,000 story is factual or whether that £6,000 story is utterly spurious, I don't know. But for me, I don't know why we're not using Haji to some degree to put him on the shop window a little bit more. I think he is a very talented footballer. And I think, if come the 31st of August, he is still a Rangers player, I think it's unlikely. I think we will again either send him out on loan or find a buyer for him. There is also another solution that's been talked about. I'm going to get to that in a minute, as regards Fiorentina and Bracalo. But, I think if we are sat on the 31st of August and Janis Haji is still a Rangers player, I think some solution needs to be sat down between Janis's agent and the club to come up with a solution to get Janis to play again. Because look, Janis has kind of hinted at the fact that he's willing to stay at Rangers, he's willing to fight for his place, he's willing to play for the club. So if that's the case, I think we do need to perhaps look at how we can overcome that if he is still here on the 31st of August. I'll say what I've said on numerous podcasts, what I've said in comments to other podcasts that get ignored. We can't have two players on £46,000 a week sat in the stand doing jack all if it's the 31st of August and they haven't moved on. It just is not financially sound. It is not business sound. It is not football sound. So, that solution has got to be found somehow this week. That's one to watch for the rest of this week. Now, one of the solutions that has been discussed as regards Janis Haji has been, there was earlier in the window a link between Haji and Fiorentina. Fiorentina have it's Josip Bracalo, who is a player that was apparently interesting Rangers. Bracalo has a market value of around €3.5 million. And obviously I think Rangers were interested in taking Bracalo on a loan with an option to buy. Bracalo didn't feature for Fiorentina at all in their draw at the weekend. And the Fiorentina manager has made it quite clear that he has a desire to get rid of some of the fringe players to raise extra cash for the club. So Bracalo, I think, is very much still on the way out of the club. Now, one of the things that has been talked about and has been discussed by Rangers fan sites, Rangers media, and a number of written sources within the UK has been a possibility of Rangers using some cash plus Haji or just straight Haji to get Bracalo. If Fiorentina are still interested in Haji, which I've got no reason to doubt that they aren't, and that we're still interested in Josip Bracalo, maybe a solution can be found where Haji and Bracalo are swapped and perhaps some cash or whatever. Depends obviously on the market values, depends on the relative balances. Obviously, brand Haji does carry a lot of money. Look at what he got for his wedding video, for God's sake. So look, I think for me that is one I hope the club are looking at. Bracalo, to me, looks a very, very good player. Josip Bracalo is a Croatian player, very talented Croatian player. He can play out wide left, out wide right. He can also play in the 10 role as well. Now, given the fact that Rangers, that Philippe Clermont is a manager who likes to have players who can play a number of different positions, it may be that, someone like Bracalo is a player of great interest to him. We do need a winger. We do need a 10. Bracalo can fill both of those different positions, and is very positive. Bracalo He's only 26 as well. So, even though he is a more senior player, he would obviously bring that experience that we feel at times we've been lacking with some of the signings. Add into that as well. The fact that at 26, you can probably still get a couple of years out of him and still sell him for a bit of a profit when he's 28, 29. Like I said, he can play in a number of different positions. He can play as a 10, he can play as a right winger, he can play as a left winger. Now, in his time, in his career, he played, when he was at Torino, he actually played as a 10 at Torino and was very successful for Torino in Italy in Serie A, playing as a 10. So it may be that just as a winger, actually as someone who can come and play in the 10 role. So that is a possibility, a genuine possibility. If that's something we can get done, then that is something we should be looking at. The fact that he can also play out wide as well, that he's quick, he's skillful, he's a strong player, I think, is a very big positive mood for me. So look, I honestly believe that if that is the case, that if Bracalo genuinely is still of interest, that we should be looking at getting something done on that front, that we should be looking at trying to get Bracalo through the door, for me. And if that can be done as part of a Haji swap, then that will be even better, I think, for the club. So I think, Bracalo will be someone we've got to keep an eye on this week, something we've got to watch this week, something that definitely needs to be looked at. And like I said, we know the positions of need within the club. It's 6, it's 10, it's a winger, it's a centre-back, it's a right-back, it's a striker. We know where the positions of need are. I'm sure that Coppen and Clement are aware of that too and are working on those positions as we speak. So, that's a definite one for me. Obviously, the other one, another one that was linked recently was Lewis Travis of Blackburn. Travis played at the weekend for Blackburn. He was in Blackburn, I think, won at the weekend 2-1. Travis played quite well by all accounts. He's the captain of Blackburn. I was talking to some Blackburn fan site guys the other week. Yesterday. It was on Saturday, I think it was. Yeah, Saturday night, I was chatting away to some Blackburn fan sites and asking them about Lewis Travis and what the gossip is around their fan sites, around the fans, around the fan media at Blackburn. According to Blackburn, and I know Rangers have denied the tour that was rumoured with Craig Robertson allegedly taking Lewis Travis around Akinhawi. That was denied by Rangers. Now, according to the Blackburn fan sites and the Blackburn fans that I was talking to, there is no truth in the rumour that Blackburn want to sell Lewis Travis, that they would not be looking to do any sort of swap deal for Matondo, that they don't want to sell Travis, that Travis is a part of their plans for this season. And they can't really afford to actually sell any more midfielders because it's an area of need for the club. So I think the Lewis Travis one is a dead one. Can't see that one going through now. I think that is very much was the Sun and some false reporting as well. I don't think that was true at all. And obviously with the Blackburn fans denying that and saying there's no truth in it as well, I think that's probably true if I'm being honest with you. So that one looks dead and done and out of the way. But I think Rangers will still look for a 6. If you look over this transfer window, we have obviously targeted 6 as a position that we do need to address. Yes, Connor Barron is doing a very fine job there at this moment in time. Connor has been probably the Rangers player of the season so far, the way he drops into the back four, the way he constantly covers for James Tavernier, the way that he's always offering for the ball, the way that when he gets the ball, his first move is always positive, the way that he tackles anything that moves. It may be that Dujon Sterling has to fill in that 6 role, because whether we like it or not, we're going to be stuck with Tav at right back for the rest of the season. So I do think, Dujon may be asked to fill in that 6 role if we can't get a 6 over the line before the window closes. But I think Rangers have shown us, haven't they, over this window, that 6 is a position they need to address. We've obviously looked at Joanne Jordan from Sevilla, Kenny McLean from Norwich, Lewis Travis from Blackburn. So I think there is a definite move to get an experienced 6 in there, someone to sit at the base of the midfield and give us that joined up look between the defence, the midfield and the attack, a conductor, a quarterback to direct play. So look, for me, there will be, I think, a 6 looked at this week. Whether we get one across the line or not, I don't know. But obviously it will not be Lewis Travis. That one is dead as we are looking at it today. Blackburn to Matondo to Blackburn, that's still alive apparently. Stories have it in down south that Blackburn apparently are still considering a move for Matondo. Clement did obviously make the comment that he did at the weekend, but he's since reined back on that and said that obviously every player has his price, that if a bid comes in for him, that we should be looking at, obviously moving on players if a substantial bid comes in. And I think if Blackburn were to come in with a £3-4 million offer for Rabbi Matondo, we'd have to look at it. We'd have to consider it. You know, Rabbi was excellent. Don't get me wrong. On Saturday, he was my man of the match. He was brilliant on Saturday. But my worry about Rabbi Matondo is the brilliant Rabbi from Saturday is not the Rabbi we see for every game of every season that he plays. We see a gloriously inconsistent Rabbi Matondo. We see a Rabbi Matondo that 1 minute is a world beater, the next minute is just very average, you know, goes past the player but forgets to take the ball with him, hits a shot that hits the corner flag, you know, can't beat a man, you know, really struggles. Then next week we'll see a Rabbi Matondo that lights it up, it goes past players for fun, that pulls in beautiful crosses, that smashes in goals like he did in Celtic against PSV, plays like he did on Saturday. So, you know, Rabbi is very inconsistent, and that is the worry with Rabbi. Now, if we could have Rabbi from Saturday every single game that he plays, then I'd be happy to keep Rabbi Matondo, no matter what wage he's on. But the fact that we've got a lot of money tied up in Rabbi Matondo and he is not consistent enough for that money, I think is the big concern. That's why a lot of fans would be quite happy to see him depart this week. And like I said, that I think is still very much on at this moment in time. It may not happen. It may happen. We don't know. But obviously that is still been considered by Blackburn Rovers. So look, whatever happens with Rabbi, if we keep him, great. If we let him go, fine. We move on. We get someone else in who's just as good or better or more consistent, which is what you'd be looking at, obviously. And that's got to be the desire, hasn't it? So we go for that one. I think Thiago Gouveia, that one is very much a dead deal as well. Benfica have made it clear that they don't want him to go anywhere, that he is part of their plans. He has been featuring for them from the bench. I think he's made 2 or 3 appearances. He's got a goal. He got a goal and an assist. So I think the Thiago Gouveia deal is dead and buried as well. You know, Rangers did make an inquiry for him, which was turned down. So I do feel that one is another one that's died. I mean, he would have been a great player to have in. He is a very talented player, a very, very skillful player, a quality player. And Portugal does seem to be producing some absolutely superb players at this moment in time. The Bruno Fernandezes, the Bernardo Silvas, João Felix, Enzo Fernandez, all these players that are coming through the system there, you know, Leao, just absolutely super players. But you know, I'm sure Gouveia would have been brilliant, but I think it is dead and buried now. That one will not happen this week either, so we can kind of write that one off. So where are we up to with this? Obviously we can see that there's still a possibility with Bracalo. Travis is dead, Gouveia dead, the deal's obviously not the person. Now let's move it on to Kai or KK or Kiki or whatever he's called. I mean, the Brazilian with the interesting name. Now, we obviously went in with a bid for him. That bid was rejected. That was Fabrizio Romano reporting that. So you've got to kind of believe that there's some truth in that. You know, if Fabrizio reports it, or Damartio, that's the other guy, that's the other Italian guy. If it comes out of those two, it is probably true. Now, according to reports this morning, the Kai deal or the KK deal or the Kiki deal or whatever he's called, Kiki, is we've obviously had that one bid thrown out. Now, that potentially Rangers now are looking at a follow-up bid since the exit of Ben Davies. Now, Almeria are in the 2nd division. They are not a La Liga team. So that's, you know, very much a situation that we could exploit. You know, the Almeria playing in the Segunda División in Spain, you know, for a player like Kai who could come to Ibrox and actually play first team football in Europe would be a better option for him, because if he plays in the Europa League, plays well, you know, he's made it clear that he does want to move on with his career. He wants to develop his career. He wants to go and play at one of the top clubs, top leagues in Europe. He was reportedly of interest to Barcelona when he was a youngster at Santos. Barcelona obviously in a very difficult financial situation at this moment in time, so apparently at that time couldn't afford the 17 million that Santos were asking for him. So, you know, it is, I think, a situation where we could go back in for Kai, Kiki, whatever he's called. I'd love to get his actual pronunciation. Ruby, that's the name of the Almeria coach, not his real name. Apparently that's the name he goes by. has been talking to Diario de la Almeria, which is one of the papers in Almeria in Spain, about the situation, about the whole transfer window situation. This is what he had to say. He says, what we always know, everyone runs when the final date approaches. These are the worst moments for a coach in a club. It's no longer that you can lose a player or not. That is normal, but the footballer's head changes every day. We know there are 8 days left. This was obviously the other day when he gave this interview. We are going to have a great team at the end of the market. There are a few footballers who are training as well as possible, giving their best, but in the end, they are with whether they're representatives this or not. Another in the end, it affects that. I hope tomorrow there is a few footballers in that condition. We are a healthy group, but at some point they are confused because it's a complicated time. So Ruby, I think, has genuinely said that although he wants to hang on to Kaiki or Keiki or Kaikai. There is a possibility that he could still leave, that he could still move on, because he's saying that that although the club may want to keep players, the club may want players to stay. If the player and his representatives make for a move and push for a move, that could still go through. So I do think the whole Kai situation, or Keiki or Kaki or whatever he's called, situation is not dead. I think obviously there's the things we've got to offer him. We have got a lot to offer as a club still. The European football, playing at Ibrox. Obviously, Danio's here, Jeff Tay's here, so the Brazilian players here as well. I think there is a situation where this deal could get done this week. A lot depends obviously on what the terms of that contract are. Obviously, with the departure of Ben Davies, that frees up more funds. I think, even though we do have Suter, we do have King, we do have Balogun and Proper, and to some extent Dujon Sterling, who can play centre-back, who I thought was excellent at centre-back on Saturday. I feel there's still perhaps a desire within the club to bring in a second centre-back. That is one to watch this week. So I think the Bracalo and the Kaiki or Kaikai deals are definitely ones to watch this week. Another story, obviously not regarding players being sold or players being bought, is around Scottish defender and Scottish international defender John Souttar. Now, according to reports in the media this morning, Souttar, it is rumoured, will be offered a new contract by Rangers. Souttar has apparently impressed Philippe Clement with some of his displays. And according to the reports that I'm reading in the media, there is a desire within the club to tie Souttar down to a new contract. So that's an interesting one. Souttar, who is under contract until 2026, so has 2 years left on his deal. Souttar, obviously, when he came to the club, there was injury concerns, but Souttar certainly seems to be staying fit now, which is one thing that was always held him back in the past. I think this is a very positive move on that one aspect, that no matter what you think of John Souttar, whether you think it's a good idea to give him a new deal or not, players, when they have 2 years left on their deal, that is the time to move, to buy, to tie players down. That is the time to go to players and say, right, you either sign a new contract or we sell you. The moment a player moves into the final 12 months of his deal, his value will be lowered. Clubs will be very clever with what they do. They'll wait until the January of that year to get him on a pre-contract and then get him for free. So I think, the fact that Souttar is out of contract till 2026, whether or not, this move is to keep Souttar long term, or whether this is just to protect the asset, I don't know. But if it is protect the asset, it is a very good move by the club from that aspect, because if you tied Souttar down to perhaps another 2-3 year extension, that means that if we do want to sell him at the end of this season, the end of next season, we're going to get some money for him. He's not going to be able to walk. And Clement has always spoken, hasn't he, about the not allowing players to walk for nothing anymore. The absolute ludicrousness of allowing 5-6 players every single season to just walk for nothing at the end of the year. So I think this move to give Souttar a new contract is very much around that, protecting the assets, protecting what we've got, given the fact that he's only got those 2 years left on his deal now. And it's what a lot of clubs across Europe are starting to do, go to players with 2 years left on their deal, saying, here is the new deal, sign it or we sell you. So I think that is what the intention is with this contract. I know Souttar has his critics. I know he's got a mistake in him, but he still, I think, is a decent centre back in Scotland, in the Scottish Premier League. He does a good job. I think if Souttar didn't have that mistake in him, he would probably be playing in the EPL. I think he would, but I think the move to bring Souttar in, even if we bring in Kaikai, we have Proper, we have Souttar, and we have Balogun. You've got there a very good core of very good defenders to go through this season. So I think this is a very sensible move by the club and a move to protect the assets of the club. So, positive news, I think, giving Suter, if there is truth in this rumor that Suter will be getting a new contract this season. I think, one of the other things that we need to be looking at this window, and I think hopefully as this window comes to an end, which many of you may be grateful for, I think for me, one of the things we do need to be looking at, and as I mentioned on the video this morning, Lennon Miller, Davy Watson, Danny Armstrong, Luke McGowan, the other lad from Lyle, what's that guy's second name, from Dundee. I think we do need to be looking at those players as well. Hopefully there are feelers being put out in the Scottish market as well, because I think, with players like Lennon Miller, Luke McGowan, Davy Watson, Danny Armstrong, you are looking at players who can come in and hit the ground running, who can play from minute one, who you could go into perhaps even to the Old Firm game on Sunday and actually start and actually understand the Old Firm game and actually know how to play Celtic because they've done it for their clubs. So I'm hoping as well there is some scouting going on and some feelers being put out in terms of Scottish talent, like Miller, for example. Lennon Miller is top of my list. Hopefully he's on Rangers' list as well. So I think there is positives there of bringing in Scottish talent. And as I said on the video this morning, if you go back across Walter Smith's time at the club, our most successful era, there was a core of Scottish players there. And I think it's important to have that core of Scottish players within this Rangers team, a core that understand what it is to be a Rangers player and what it's like for teams playing against Rangers. So I do think that hopefully there is some truth in those rumours as well. Right, guys, that's where we're up to this morning. We'll be back tomorrow with obviously another update as to where we're going. Hopefully, the rest of today we'll have some more announcements. Hopefully, something will get across the line today. We'll obviously try and keep across it. I have got to go to work today, unfortunately. Guys, thank you for watching. Please, on the way out, obviously, smash that like. And remember always, please remember always, we are the